Good afternoon. We're here today to announce two arrests and a homicide that occurred Sunday here in Bay County. On Monday, we received a 911 call in the Fountain area on Camellia Street reporting a van on fire in a dead-end area at the end of Camellia Street. Bay County Fire and Sheriff's Office responded to that location. A deputy, as fire was putting the fire out and dealing with a fairly large brush fire that started as a result of the van fire, a deputy noticed what he believed to be a body in the back of the van. Our Criminal Investigations Division responded, crime scene unit, as well as the medical examiner's office. We began to conduct interviews in that area to determine who the individual was and any information that may lead us to determining what the cause of death was. Obviously, the fire was very intense, destroyed the van, which obviously is an issue with us with the collection of evidence, makes it much more challenging for us. We also had our partners, so we got Lieutenant Stryker here with CFO Jimmy Petronas, the State Fire Marshal's office. So they came out to assist us in determining the cause and origin of the fire, which was very helpful to us. The medical examiner the following morning, Tuesday morning, conducted an autopsy on the body that we found. At that point, we did not know if it was a victim of foul play or not, but the medical examiner's autopsy was conclusive that the victim had suffered multiple stab wounds. So, of course, at that point, we realized that we had a homicide investigation. The victim was identified as a Christopher Wesley Whaley, 23 years old, of Panama City. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends. And this obviously really increased our efforts on this investigation. Although we were already conducting interviews and searches in that area, it was clear at that point that we had a homicide investigation. Led us in several different directions. We conducted additional interviews and search warrants in Bay County as well as Holmes County. We appreciate Sheriff Tate, the Holmes County Sheriff's Office, with the assistance that they provided in this case. Through this investigation, we identified a Raven Gladden, age 25, of Ivydale, and Asher Martin, age 20, local transient. They were identified as the last two people that were seen with Whaley on Sunday, April 26. They were brought to the Sheriff's Office in the early morning hours this morning and interviewed, and we were able to develop enough evidence to arrest Martin on an open count of homicide and Gladden on accessory to murder. The events that led up to this, as the investigation showed, was that Christopher Whaley picked up Gladden and Martin in his van on Sunday, April 26. They picked up another woman and they drove to Panama City from Fountain to conduct a drug transaction. That did not occur. Martin, Gladden, and the victim left the female in Panama City and traveled back to Fountain. Martin instructed the victim, Whaley, to drive to the Dickerson Road area in Fountain, which was obviously a separate location from where we discovered the van. Whaley parked the vehicle on Dickerson. He gets out of the van, reaches back into the van, possibly to retrieve his cell phone. And that time, Martin hit the victim with a bladed instrument. The suspect described the weapon as approximately a 2-foot-long blade, probably very similar to a machete. We've not found that yet. Whaley runs from the van. Martin catches up with him and hits him multiple times, resulting in stab-like wounds, which ultimately caused his death. He then placed the victim in the van, and he and Gladden drive to the Camellia Street area in Fountain, and they leave the van. We've determined through interviews and physical evidence that Raven Gladden purchased gasoline on Monday, April 27, provided that to Martin. They both returned to the van and spread the gas and light the fire, starting the fire and the eventual brush fire that occurred. Just a very, very tragic and senseless situation. We still don't completely know what the motive for this case is. And these cases are typically extremely difficult to solve because most of your physical evidence is destroyed. In fact, we did have quite a time in identifying the victim in this case. There was nothing found in the van, such as a driver's license or personal effects because that had all burned up. The VIN number on the vehicle was even destroyed, so we had to use some alternate methods to discover that. So to be able to stand before you today a couple days later and announce arrest in a homicide case makes me very proud of the men and women behind us, because these cases aren't solved by luck, and they normally don't fall in our lap, but it's as a result of some very hard work and just frankly being relentless on these kind of cases. We don't just send 2 investigators out to work a homicide. Everyone standing up here behind us has worked tirelessly on this case for the past 2 days with very, very little sleep. And again, it's not an easy case to solve or even to identify the victim. So I'd just like to commend all of you for in bringing justice to this victim and their family. We also have our partners to thank: Bay County Fire, the Division of Forestry, and of course our partners at the Medical Examiner's Office. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you may have. May need some help from these guys.
Sorry, will they be facing any additional charges like arson or anything, or tampering?
We'll be looking and working with the state attorney's office for additional charges, but certainly that is a possibility.
Yeah, I know that you were talking about there's not a lot of physical evidence on the case.
Mm-hmm.
Just how do you guys go about something like that?
Well, again, it's very difficult. Even something that happens very quickly in a normal homicide case, such as identifying the victim, took us, several hours and a lot of analytical work, a lot of physical evidence work. I can't really go into how we eventually identified the van, but we were able to identify the victim pretty late in the evening the first night, which then what we do is go back and try to track back the last people that they were seen with. But we have developed some strong evidence in this case in the form of interviews, surveillance cameras, and things of that nature.
I know you said you're not sure on a motive yet. Do we know the relationship between the victim and the suspects?
Well, we do believe they were involved in the use of drugs, and there's some indication that there was some drug use involved. But the exact nature of any altercation that they have, we're still working on that. Captain, I don't know if you can speak to that any more, but we're.
From interviews, it seems like it was a brief relationship amongst the 3 parties involved, the victim and the 2 defendants. They've known each other for a short period of time through a mutual friend, so that's their relationship.